We have already done the first 16 verses of Surah Al-Baqarah. So I'm going to start from verse number 70. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم مثلهم كمثل الذي استوقد النار. Their example is like someone who kindled a fire, that is in a dark night. فَلَمَّا أَضَاءَتْ مَا حَوْلَهُ. Then when the fire brightened the surroundings, مَا حَوْلَهُ مَاحَوْل, the surroundings. ذَهَبَ اللَّهُ بِنُورِهِمْ. God took away their light. وَتَرَكَهُمْ فِي ظُلُمَاتٍ لَا يُبْصِرُونَ. And left them in darkness so they can't see anything. If you recall, the Quran has mentioned before these verses 3 groups. One was the group of believers, muttaqeen, hudal lil muttaqeen. The second group that was described in only 2 verses, I think verse 6 and 7, which was describing kuffar who had decided that they are not going to believe. And the third group was the group of people who were hypocrites or were, because of their behavior, coming close to hypocrisy, bordering on hypocrisy. So the Almighty is now describing the first group. And he is giving example, the example of somebody who kindled fire. This is obviously Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He came with the message of God, which was a bright light. This is what the Quran talks about itself in several passages. So when the light brightened up the atmosphere, ذَهَبَ اللَّهُ بِنُورِهِمْ. God took away their light. God took away their light. Well, the fact is that the Quran says that God caused them to be misguided because they didn't deserve to be guided. Their attitude was such that they did not want to understand the truth. They did not want to understand the Quran nor the messenger. So because they didn't deserve it, the Almighty decided that now they are going to be provided with no further possibility of understanding the truth. So the light was taken away from them. وَتَرَكَهُمْ فِي ظُلُمَاتٍ لَا يُبْصِرُونَ. And he left them in darkness so they can't see anything. That's what kufr is. If you have decided that you are not going to listen to the truth with an open mind, if your mind is covered by emotions, by prejudice, you don't want to understand it, then the Almighty is not going to force you to understand. So that is what is describing their state. So it says, Summum bukmun umyun fahum la yarji'un. They are deaf, dumb, and blind, so they will never return. That is, they will never return to guidance. They are deaf. That is, they were given ears to listen to, but they never listen to the truth. Obviously, they listen to everything else. But these ears have been provided by the Almighty to us to first and foremost listen to the truth. They are bukmun, dumb. The Almighty has enabled us to speak. He wants us to speak the truth. But they refuse to speak the truth. So in the eyes of the Almighty, they are actually dumb. They can't speak. And umyun, they are blind. Eyes are provided to us to see our surroundings and to reach the right conclusions, to come to the understanding of the Almighty and His grand scheme of life. But if you refuse to do it, then you're actually blind in the eyes of God, even if you see, your eyes see and are very sharp. فَهُمْ لَا يَرْجُونَ. They're not going to return. Now this is what the Quran describes as khatm qulub. Their hearts have become incapable of knowing the truth. The Quran, as I mentioned earlier in the last presentation, mentions this reality in several different ways. Their hearts got rusted, their hearts got twisted, their hearts got hardened, There is a stamp, seal on their hearts have become darkened. That is, the Almighty has provided all human beings with the capability of knowing the truth and has given humans the liberty, the freedom to exercise the way they want to. If they choose to, they can know the truth. And if they decide they don't want to, the freedom has been provided to them to go the other way. But if they choose the wrong way, knowingly, and despite several occasions of possibility being provided to them, if they refuse to know the truth, refuse to come back to the right ways, to repent and regret, then there comes a time when they reach a point of no return. So that is what happened to these people who were kuffar, and their state has been described. Now verse 19 says, أَوْ كَسَيِّبٍ مِّنَ السَّمَاءِ, or like rain is falling from the sky. Now this is the second group. Call them hypocrites, call them people who were coming close to hypocrisy, had not become completely hypocrites, but they were kind of inclining towards it. فِيهِ ظُلُمَاتٌ وَرَعْدٌ وَبَرْقٌ, or like rain is falling from the sky, it has darkness, thunder, and lightning. What does it mean? It means that the Almighty sent down His guidance in the form of the Quran, divine revelation. Divine revelation has been described as light. But this light, its nature is such that it's not just that it shows you the way. It actually is accompanied by trials, challenges. You face difficulties. There are problems, oppositions, losses, everything. If you are able to remain steadfast and you continue to pursue the path of truth, seeking the truth, God is going to enable you to succeed. So the Almighty is describing this whole phenomenon beautifully, that it is rain that is falling. And the example of rainfall to describe Wahi, divine revelation, is also what the Quran mentions on other passages as well. It's actually, like rain causes crops to grow, and they become ultimately a source of food for us, provision for us. Likewise, the divine revelation comes from the sky, and it's also spiritual rainfall, which causes us to have the crops of faith and good morals. So this rain has come down. The Almighty has caused it to fall, but it is accompanied by trials, challenges. Fihi zulumatun waradun wa barq. It has darkness, thunder, and lightning. يَجْعَلُونَ أَصَابِعَهُمْ فِي آذَانِهِمْ مِنَ السَّوَائِقِ حَذَرَ الْمَوْتِ. They are thrusting their fingers in their ears because of thunder, out of fear of death. Wallahu muhitum bil kafirin, and God has taken over, has covered them, these men, these kuffar. So the idea is that they were provided with an opportunity to know the truth in the form of rainfall, in the form of light, but it was accompanied by challenges. Instead of facing those challenges properly, they, succumbed to the challenges and were not able to face them properly. They were thrusting their fingers in their ears, and they would be hesitant, they would be fearful, they would not respond to the call of the Prophet and faith. So that's what their plight was. Yakadul barqu yakhtafu absarahum. The lightning is almost snatching away their sight. Kullama adha lahum mashaw fihi. Every time it lights the way for them, mashaw fihi, they walk therein. وَإِذَا أَظْلَمَ عَلَيْهِمْ أَمْرٌ. And but when darkness comes over them, they stand still. وَلَوْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ لَذَهَبَ بِسَمْعِهِمْ وَأَبْصَارِهِمْ. And if Allah had willed, He could have taken away their hearing and their sight. Inna Allah ala kulli shayin qadir. Indeed, God has control over everything. That is, this trial that they are going through, they're not facing it properly. When they see light, they move. Sometimes they do get this idea that, this message seems to be right, and we should go ahead. They find themselves inclined. But as soon as they come across difficulties, there is darkness, they stop. They were not prepared to make the kind of sacrifices that true faith demanded from them. And therefore, they were found not up to the mark. But the final part of the verse says, وَلَوْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ لَذَهَبَ بِسَمْعِهِمْ وَأَبْصَارِهِمْ. Had Allah willed, He could have taken away their hearing and their sight. That is, their fate has not as yet been decided. They're not the ones about whom it has been completely concluded that they don't deserve faith. They still have a chance. So, if you're living in this life, you've done certain things wrong, your decisions have gone wrong, you've gone astray by some margin, you still have a chance to come back. There are some people who unfortunately go to a point of no return by doing the kind of evil deeds, taking wrong decisions, entertaining evil thoughts in their minds, in their hearts. And the end result is that, they go beyond the boundary that the Almighty has decided. If somebody crosses, then he's a gone case, incorrigible, and has no chance, hope of coming back. But in their case, the Almighty says they still have a chance. If only they would try as best as they can to reform themselves and correct their stance. Inna Allah ala kulli shayin qadir. Indeed, God has control over everything. That is, God can do anything, and God decides on the basis of His wisdom, His knowledge, His mercy, and everything. But His decision is always right, and what He decides gets implemented. Ya ayyuhan nasu u'budu rabbakum allazi khalaqakum. Now we are into verse 21. Ya ayyuhan nasu u'budu rabbakum allazi khalaqakum wallazina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. O people, worship your Lord who created you and those before you, so that you are saved from His punishment. Now, this, it seems, is addressing a fourth group in Yasrib. Yasrib, Medina, had a population which was comprised of 4 different religious groups. The believers, Al-Muttaqeen, the Kuffar, whose fate was already decided, the weak believers and the hypocrites. And then there were some polytheists who had not decided as yet. The Almighty, it seems, is now directly addressing them. This address to the polytheists is obviously an address to the entire humanity as well. But in the context of when the verses were being revealed, there was a definite group that was there, that was being addressed for them to take cognizance of what the Almighty is saying. So, O people, in other words, after having described whatever is mentioned in the earlier verses, the Almighty is saying that ignore them. O people, worship your Lord. Now, what it means is that worship the people, worship the being who has created you. This is what the Almighty requires from all humans, that they should acknowledge the presence of the Almighty. They should know their relationship with Him. He is great, we are nothing. He is our creator, we are created. We are vulnerable. He provides us with all the blessings that we need. And therefore, we should submit to him. We should praise him. We should thank him. We should worship him. So this is an invitation that has been extended to the entire humankind. That is, worship your Lord who created you and those before you. So what the Almighty is saying is that you polytheists, you are worshipping certain idols, statues that represent either some of your earlier religious leaders, saints, or they are representing some angels or jinns. That's what the understanding was. And they used to worship them in the hope that they are going to come to their rescue in this life and in the next life. So that's what their stance, their position was. The Almighty is saying that worship only one God, your creator, who has created you and you know what? Those who came before you as well, those whom you worship, quite apart from him. You know, what a sad state of affairs, how foolish on your part that you are worshipping somebody other than him. Why should you do it? لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you are saved from his punishment. That is, you are going to be punished for this act of yours wherein you ignored the Almighty's call to worship him alone and you're ascribing partners with him. الَّذِي جَعَلَ لَكُمُ الْأَرْضَ فِرَاشًا, who is the one who created you? The one who made the earth a bed spread out. وَالسَّمَاءَ بِنَاءً, and the sky a ceiling. So the idea that has been given here in this verse is that, you know, you are living in a residence, in a house. It has a floor which provides you with the opportunity to move across. It's like a bed. It's like something which is absolutely laid out for you to meet your needs. And then for your protection, there is a ceiling as well. So that's a house that you are living in, his dwelling, his residence that he has provided you with. Now, what else did you need for you to live on? You needed food. You needed sustenance. So what he did was, فَأَنزَلَ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً, so he poured down water from the sky. فَأَخْرَجَ بِهِ مِنَ الثَّمَرَاتِ رِزْقًا لَكُمْ, then he brought forth through it, that is through the water, diverse fruits. فَلَا تَجْعَلُوا لِلَّهِ أَنْدَادًا وَأَنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ, he did it as provisions for you. So do not attribute partners to God even when you know that what has been mentioned is right. So what are you doing? I mean, you are living in this world, you are living comfortably. This world has been made absolutely appropriate, congenial for your living. You needed a dwelling, he's provided you with it. This earth is a place for you to live comfortably. You needed food to sustain yourself. You've been provided with adequate provisions, diverse kinds of food. And if you realize it, that he has done it for you, then there's no reason that you should ascribe partners with it. And you know it. You know it. What does it mean? What it means is that the Quran makes a very strong claim that we human beings, all of us, before coming to this world, were given the experience of knowing that God is one. It is described in Surah Al-Araf, verse 172, 173. It is called the Ahdi al-Ast. We all humans, we were asked by the Almighty when we were assembled, not in this form, probably what is called spiritual form. And he asked, Alastu bi Rabbikum, am I not your Lord? And everybody responded, Bala, why not? You indeed are. So when you know it, why are you ascribing partners with others? And it is mentioned towards the end of that description that God has done it so that you have no excuse to present before the Almighty, telling him that, you know what, our parents did it, our elders did it, so we didn't have any idea. God says, you have a very clear idea. Obviously, this question arises. I mean, we don't remember it. So, I mean, how could it be an evidence? The fact of the matter is that there are many things that have happened in the past in our lives that we don't remember, but there are evidences that show that they actually happen. Uh, for want of a better example, I keep mentioning about my twisted ear, the right one. I don't remember when I did it. Obviously, I was a child when I used to fiddle with it. We didn't used to have any recreation in those times, nothing to do. It was a quite seriously boring life. So sometimes we'll fiddle with our fingers, sometimes we'll put our fingers in our nose, sometimes we'll fiddle with the ear. And this, stayed where I twisted it, didn't come back, and still there. When I see it in the mirror, I cannot recall the incident, but I know that's true that I did it. So what I'm trying to say is that things happen in the past which you don't remember, but they actually happened, that there is some evidence. The evidence of the reality that we actually met God and we know about his oneness surfaces. It comes out when we are able to understand him through our intellectual reflection, through reading the Quran, or through some experience in our lives. And when we are able to get in touch with the Almighty, it's an emotional feeling, a very strong emotional feeling. Why would you get emotional about some discovery? All that you would say is that, oh yeah, I now understand that 2 + 2 = 4. I mean, what is so emotional about it? It's just a discovery. But in this case, we actually feel that we have been able to discover somebody who resides inside us, and we know him. So the Almighty is mentioning it that, don't ascribe partners with it, even when you know it. You have his understanding deep inside. And this understanding of his unity has been described by the prophets over and over again. وَإِن كُنْتُمْ فِي رَيْبٍ مِّمَّا نَزَّلْنَا عَلَىٰ عَبْدِنَا. And if you are in doubt about what we have sent down upon our servant, فَأْتُوا بِسُورَةٍ مِّن مِّثْلِهِ, then bring forth a surah like it, مِّن مِّثْلِهِ, like it. وَادْعُوا شُهَدَاءَكُمْ, and call upon your leaders, min dunillah, apart from Allah, in kuntum sadiqeen, if you are really truthful. Leaders, your representatives, your poets, your jinns, or whoever you are worshipping, some of whom you worship as well. So what the Quran is doing now is, in order to, what I mentioned earlier, do itmam hujjah, to take away all kind of excuses from them, is saying that, look here, you think that what we are telling you is wrong. It's a false claim. And therefore, what you're saying, what you're telling us is that it's not God's book. Then you have a very simple exercise to do. Just bring a surah, one surah, like any of the surahs of the Quran, and tell people that, look here, here's the book, and here is our surah. And the two are not very different in their sublimity, in their excellence of presentation, the kind of profound message this book is delivering. The other surah is also doing the same. Just do it. And the way the Quran has presented it, if they would have done it, the presentation of the Quran would not have been possible to be done any further. People don't understand, there are many Muslims who, secretly from inside, they're a little bit embarrassed. I know that while there have been so many great miracles that were given to Musa alayhi salam and Isa alayhi salam, where is our miracle? So they try to create some artificial miracles. So they would like to present that the story of Miraj, that was a miracle. Sometimes the splitting of moon is a miracle. Quran has rejected the possibility of these physical miracles. It says that the Quran is a miracle. And this miracle was presented in the form of a book because it was meant to stay for until the day of judgment. You see, Prophet ﷺ was by design, the Almighty ensured that in the first 40 years of his life, even though he was by far the best human being, morally upright, people were impressed. He was described as a Sadiq al-Amin, the truthful, the reliable. But purposely, it was ensured that he was not able to read or write. He was completely unlettered. And people in Mecca knew it. You know, when you are living in a small town, the population of 2,000, 3,000 people, it's smaller than any of the small colonies that we have back home. You know, everybody knew everybody else. And for the first 40 years of his life, although there was, people who were into poetry, oratory and so on, they took pride in the depth and excellence of their language. And they knew that this man, he has no interest in it. He can't even write or read. And then all of a sudden he comes up with a book which declares that it's God spoke, and it's challenging these people that the religion of your forefathers that you're believing in and following is false, is wrong. And you're going to be accountable to the Almighty for it. And they opposed him. They didn't accept the message. So what the Almighty is doing is presenting them with the opportunity that here is an opportunity for you. What you need to do is just present one surah like a Quranic surah and call upon the services of all people, beings that you can, invite, if you are really truthful. فَإِن لَمْ تَفْعَلُوا, then, but if you are unable to do it, فَلَن تَفْعَلُوا, and most certainly you won't be able to do it. That's the confidence. That's the force with which the Almighty is making this claim. They will not be able to do it. There's no chance. فَاتَّقُوا النَّارَ الَّتِي وَقُودُهَا النَّاسُ وَالْحِجَارَةُ, then fear the fire whose fuel would be men and stones. That is, men who rejected the Almighty's message, and the stones that they used to worship. So, it would be as if insult would be added to injury, that they will be punished and they will be informed that, look, these gods of yours whom you relied upon and you thought that they're going to come to your rescue whenever you're going to be in danger, they're also getting punished. Uiddat lil kafirin, this fire, this punishment has been prepared for these disbelievers. I just want to say a few things about these two verses. This challenge was meant for the people who were present at the time when the Quran was being revealed. They were the ones who knew their Arabic well, and they knew that the Quran was revealed couched in the same language. So they had experts of the language with them, and the challenge was given to them. Some of the poets were still there, and they could have come up and responded to the challenge. If you were to use the same challenge today, I think it's going to be no service to the cause of Quran. The challenge was not responded to. The Quran continued with its process of influencing people As I mentioned earlier, it went through the different phases of the prophetic mission, and the mission was supremely successfully accomplished. Now, who can do anything against it now? The Quran has been completely revealed and it's now fully preserved. And by the way, languages keep changing in their style and the way of presentation. The appreciation of that language, the way it was with those people who were the contemporaries of the Prophet, is not there anymore. I'm saying all this because there were some well-meaning but naive Muslims of the late 20th and early 21st century who, because of the advent of internet, people can interact with each other on their groups and they discuss and there are debates, etc. So there were some Muslims, Arab Muslims, who presented this challenge and said that the Quran is God's book and this is the proof. You know that some Arabs are Christians, some Arabs are Jews. So not all Arabs are Muslims. So what happened was they came up with a response. And they created a website, which was then, it had this URL, Surah like it. And they presented 4 surahs in Arabic. Do whatever you can. The Punjabi translation of it is, Kar lo jo karna hai. That is, why did you do it? This was not meant for you. This is another problem that many of us have, that they think that the Quran, each and every part of the Quran is actually practically relevant for all times to come. That is not what the Quran claims. Nor would you make that claim if you are reading the Quran carefully. I mentioned it before, that the Quran is actually, from A to Z, a description of the prophetic mission. It's the saga of the messenger's warning to the people of his times. A good part of the Quran is practically relevant for everyone, not the entire Quran. If you form incorrect opinions, if you understand the Quran with principles that you have created yourself, well, you'll be disappointed. And then the end result is going to be, you'll get unnecessarily emotionally charged. And the result is going to be that the Quran will not be possible to be presented properly. There are going to be barriers created between humans and the Quran because of our own faulty, incorrect understanding. So, this challenge was not meant for anyone except for the people who were present at that time, and they did not present any response. And the Quran said that they will not be able to do it. So that is a miracle, exactly the same way as Musa alayhi salam, when he went to Pharaoh and his companions, and he showed them, the staff, the stick, and it turned into a serpent. They had no answer, nor his magicians, master magicians. They didn't have any answer. So likewise, the Quran is a masterpiece of Arabic literature. In fact, any literature in the world you present and the Quran would surpass it. But who knows it? Who can appreciate it? The people back then who were there, who could appreciate language. And they were the ones who were presented with this challenge, and they could not respond to that challenge. Because we have decided that we are going to start and end on time. Here is my last statement. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله